welcome to the first episode of Creationist Bingo. The way this game works is you create your own standard 5x5 bingo card, only instead of numbers, you put in standard creationist claims, and you get a free fallacy in the center. Then we'll play an edited down video of a creationist spouting the usual rhetoric. Now you can use my choices, as you can see on the screen, put them in a different order, choose your own, however you want to do it. So if you don't have a card prepared and would like to play, pause the video at this time and create it. The first video we will be doing is "The elite don't want you to know God is real. Here's the proof." If you get a bingo, in the comments section, please let us know the time index of the video at which you achieved the bingo. Then we will see who gets bingo first. And finally, before we begin, this video has a conspiracy theory claim I have never heard. Some elite conspirators are promoting evolution for their own nefarious ends. If you can guess who the conspirators are and what the conspiracy is, you win instantly. So without further ado, let's begin this wonderful, wonderful educational video.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us. I have a very special broadcast prepared for you here. Author James Perloff is back. He's returning to SGT Report to discuss his incredible work in the area of evolution. The elite believe something. I think they believe in a satanic agenda, satanic power. James, what is wrong with Charles Darwin's theories?
I was an atheist at one time. Communism. Well, heard of Joseph Stalin, mass murderer of millions, dictator of the Soviet Union. He began to read Darwin and became an atheist. Darwinism for well over a century has been turning people into agnostics and atheists. Why is it that the powers that be, the Rothschilds, wanted to introduce this theory? We make the Bible an old myth, the Ten Commandments are an old myth. But the Rothschilds wanted a world in which eugenicists and soldiers would kill for them in their population control program.
And that is the conspiracy. If you chose international Jewish bankers or the Rothschilds by name, and you picked as your conspiracy Jews engaging in eugenics programs, then you win instantly.
Okay, and evolutionists would say, well, you know what? I don't believe in any of this garbage you guys are saying about the so-called moral implications of Darwinism.
What is wrong with Darwin's On the Origin of Species that the establishment still bitterly clings to as a piece of faith, just like they cling to the Big Bang, which is nothing more than a theory?
So to start at the beginning, the origin of life, I've got a can here of all-natural cola. Now, does anybody think that this can and its contents and the printing on the outside could have originated by pure chance? And obviously not. I mean, it's too well designed. So that raises the question of how could a cell come about by chance, because it's astronomically more complex than the can I just showed you. A simple one-celled bacterium, R. coli, contains DNA information units that are the equivalent of 100 million pages of Encyclopedia Britannica. And the odds would be of getting a protein by chance. The odds are 1 in 10 to the power of 260. Mathematicians usually say that anything with odds greater than 1 in 10 to the power of 50 is impossible. So it would be impossible to get one protein by chance in the span of one life.
I'm interrupting here just briefly because no mathematician says that odds of 1 in 10 to the 50th power is the same as the odds of 0. In fact, you can make that sort of thing happen in a few moments. Just take an ordinary deck of cards, shuffle it a few times. Whatever order you happen to have would be far worse than 1 in 10 to the 50th against.
Time would have had to develop and perfect the process of cellular reproduction, because if it didn't, there never would have been a second cell, and Darwin's evolutionary process would stop right there. Yeah. The odds would be the same as a tornado sweeping through a junkyard and leaving behind a perfectly assembled Boeing 747. Science is based on observations And there are no observations to support this idea that a cell could come about by chance. I mean, nobody's ever seen chemicals randomly assemble themselves into working functional cellular parts. Okay. Now, a zebra can't give birth to a baby kangaroo. Why? Because she hasn't got kangaroo genes. If we came from a fish, a fish's gene pool is radically different than a human's gene pool. So where the genes come from? And this originally stumped the Darwinists, but they came up with a solution. And what the solution was, Sean? It was mutations. Random mutations, which are a copying mistake in the genetic code. They occur very rarely, but they do occasionally happen, and they do change genetic information,
well,
right?
Cancer's a mutation, too.
Yeah.
There's a definite downside to some mutations, James.
I'll say. They say that mutations are the building block of evolutionary change. So in other words, hundreds of millions of years ago, some fish got a random mutation that gave a little bit of an arm, right? And this was conferred such a great survival advantage that it spread through those fish. And then, lo and behold, another mutation came along which gave it a little bit more of an arm until finally the fish had, through mutation, developed an arm. I've never found a mutation that added information. All point mutations that have been studied on the molecular level turn out to reduce the genetic information and not increase it.
They're destructive. Mutations can be destructive.
They are almost universally destructive. They always destroy function. They never add it. They always reduce information, never increase it. Now, just again, science is based on observation. So what do we observe mutations do to human beings? They give you sickle cell anemia. They never improve us. Yet they're supposed to be the building blocks of evolutionary improvement, right? Evolutionists will object at this point and say that there are such a things as beneficial mutations. And all mutations will delete information and function. They don't add to it. That's Dr. Spetner's point.
That's because of the public schools, because of the indoctrination, the Darwinist indoctrination. And as we talk about this, James, you know what vision comes to mind? Frankenstein science is what Darwin's theory of evolution is. It's Frankenstein science. And is there any evidence in the fossil record to support evolution? I've never seen it. And, let's talk about the missing link. Is there any fossil record that supports these jumps between species?
But how many species are there that are intermediate? Zero. Not one. Nada. Did you know by actual observation, we've never seen one species of bacteria evolve into another species of bacteria? How do you like them apples? We're supposed to believe bacteria became people, but by actual observation, no species of bacteria has even changed to another species of bacteria.
And he will cite wolves and dogs. He'll say, all the dog breeds came from wolves. There's your example of evolution. I'm tired of hearing people talk about creation. What's wrong with that thesis? It's far too simple in my opinion, James, because it only speaks to intra-species evolution, which I think has been documented, but it does not speak to one species becoming another species. Where's
the fossils? Because, since there are no transitional or in-between forms in the living world, the evolutionists will say it's in the fossil record, and you had asked about that. Let's just touch on that. That there are no transitional forms between any of these major groups. Problems of identifying ancestral forms in the fossil record. I will lay it on the line. There is not one such fossil for which one could make a watertight argument, unquote, Cullen Patterson.
Interrupting again because he is naturally misinterpreting an actual scientific truth. Yes, it is essentially impossible to identify an ancestral species. Instead, and this is what the scientist was talking about, what is identified is a representative species. We couldn't specifically identify whether that exact species was in fact the species that was ancestral. Instead, we would just say that that species is in that group. We don't know exactly which species, but we can tell whether the species was in the right group.
Let's take two examples of missing links, that have been discredited. Put the picture up of Piltdown Man.
Right.
Bingo! Did you beat me? Let me know.
Some people would say, well, that was a clever forgery. Anyone could be fooled by a forgery, but no one could be fooled by a real fossil. So let's take an example of how you can be fooled by a real fossil. So I'd like you to put on the screen the image I've called Coelacanth fossil. And what we're looking at is the Coelacanth was now, why is it so easy to be fooled by a fossil? Because 99% of the biology of any creature is in its soft anatomy, which you cannot access in a fossil. And that makes it very easy to fill in the other 99%, fill in besides the 1% you can see with your imagination. And that's fossils. You'll see an occasional spectacular one announced, but there should be an inconceivably great number of these fossils if the theory is true. And of course, we don't see those. All right, for the fourth area of evidence that I'd like to address today comes from Dr. Michael Behe. He talks about something called irreducible complexity.
Double bingo.
Now, what he means by that is that in the human body and other creatures, there are certain systems that are very complex and that consist of interdependent parts. You take away one or two parts, the whole system won't work. Ergo, they cannot have evolved. Sean, if you could put up on the screen what I called blood clotting cascade. And so the point that Dr. Behe makes is that this whole system had to be in place from the very beginning, which would indicate an intelligent designer. Now he goes on, he shows the same thing with human vision. You know, what came first? Was it the retina, the optic nerve? They've all got to be. Dr. Behe is not a Bible thumper.
Let's talk about Rogan's thesis that all dog breeds that we see have come from the wolf, so it's a proof of evolution. But that's just an intra-species example.
What we want to stress here is that variation within a type, and that would include the wolf, okay, because wolves, coyotes, and dogs can all interbreed. Variation within a type is not the same thing as evolution, which is changing one kind of animal to another, changing a fish to an amphibian, to a reptile, to a mammal. So as people within the creation intelligent design community, we acknowledge, yeah, there is change, but there's a limit to that change. And by the way, if people think that DNA could have come out by chance, let me just quote Bill Gates. He said, quote, DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software we've ever created, unquote. So if you don't think the codes for Windows 7 could come about by chance, neither could the codes for the genetic code.
Yeah, Darwin's version of science has about as much science in it as Scientology. So tell me what's wrong with Darwin's version of science.
Darwinists will commonly say that the theory of evolution is a science like the laws of gravity. It's like physics and chemistry. And so let's just look at that. You know, physics, there you go, the laws of gravity, right? Chemistry, you know, in chemistry, there's a law that water will boil at 100 degrees centigrade, and that can be tested over and over again. Now, suppose I had a theory that water can boil at 73 degrees centigrade. It'd be easy to disprove my hypothesis. All you got to do is warm water up to 73 degrees. It won't boil.
Actually, he is wrong. It is not especially difficult to get water to boil at 73 degrees Celsius. Just adjust to the appropriate pressure and it will be 73 degrees.
But let's compare that to the claims of evolution. There's a paleontologist, Donald Johanson, who found some bones in Africa, which he called Lucy. And he said that Lucy is our ancestor, and he based this on the fact that he believed some of the bones indicated that Lucy may have walked upright. Now, how do you prove that Lucy is not our ancestor? You really can't. You see, physics and chemistry consist of things that you can test right now in present time in a laboratory. Darwinism consists of speculations about things that Darwinists think happened millions of years ago, and there's no way you can test things that happened millions of years ago with the same authority as you can test the present.
Well, I'll tell you what, James. You and I probably are not going to be able to convince any hardcore atheists who believe they have science on their side to come over to our camp. But I just want to leave people with this. Again, we started with commenting on spiritual warfare. At least I did. It's alive and well on planet Earth, folks, and the people that control the paradigm, the Rothschild bankers, the Vatican, the people at the very tippy top of the pyramid that James mentioned earlier in the interview, these people don't want you to know what they're up to. They don't really want you to know their spiritual agenda, which is to worship a beast system, which they are now ushering in at a very rapid pace. Again, look at the Goddard Tunnel opening ceremony on June 1st. It cost more than $8 million, and it tells the narrative of what they believe, who they worship, and what they want to do to humanity. It's time to wake up. It's time to recognize that spiritual warfare on planet Earth is alive and well. And if you believe Darwin's strict theory of evolution, you're believing what the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and the controllers want you to believe.
Tornado in a Junkyard book is intensive. It's over 300 pages long, almost 700 footnotes, and it goes into things that we don't have time to in a show like today's, like dinosaurs and the Scopes trials and things of that nature.
It's really been my great honor to have you on again. Our last interview, we talked about Truth is a Lonely Warrior and the Shadows of Power. Guys, that'll give you the big picture about the Rothschild banking dynasty and the other banking families that want to enslave humanity.
So how did you do? Did you get bingo before I did? Let me know in the comments. Did anyone get a double or triple bingo? Did anyone fill his or her own card? Just let us know. And thank you for playing, and have a great day.